Imagine you wake up and if you're like me, you go check your phone. So you grab your phone, you look at it, and it says no connection, which is odd because you're at home or in a hotel room. When you went to sleep, your phone was working fine and communicating perfectly. So you wonder what's going on. The data is working, the Wi-Fi is working, but you don't have regular phone connection. And then you start seeing weird text messages and more importantly, weird emails pop up saying, are you trying to change your password? Are you trying to reset your password? Did you log in from a new device in another country? So now, things start coming together and you start wondering, why am I getting these since I was sleeping? Well, that is a scenario where you've been SIM swapped and you're the victim of a SIM attack. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how to survive one. Anyone in the security community would tell you that there's no way to be hack-proof. You're always going to have some exposure, especially when you're relying on third parties for your security, like the telco company, like your internet provider. These are huge organizations that often care about security, but don't have the necessary means to individually secure accounts. They care about their organization's security, not necessarily your crypto wallet on your phone. So, a quick intro. I've been in the space for a long time. In the past 3 years, been consulting and advising different projects on the best ways to implement blockchain solutions for their business. I'm the founder and CEO of Beyond Enterprises, which used to be Crowd Mentor. Now we rebranded last year. And let's define what it is. So a SIM attack, or SIM cloning splitting, as it's called sometimes, is a malicious attack to gain access to your identity and to your phone. Obviously, the attacker wants to take control of a device that is going to simulate your activity and use that for financial gain. I've heard of a lot of SIM attacks that are designed to benefit financially. Obviously, someone could use it to take revenge or do other malicious things once they have your identity and control your accounts, but mostly it's done for financial gain. And once they have access to your phone and to your apps, the attackers usually go for your online banking, brokerage, financial services, and of course, all of your crypto. Why crypto? Because as we all know, if you get hacked and your bank account is emptied, there is government insurance on it. The banks can reverse some of those transactions. So it's somewhat more reversible than a crypto transaction. If someone transfers out all your Bitcoin, it's final. You're not going to get it back. There's no reversal. That's not how crypto works. So, of course, the attackers prefer crypto. How does a SIM attack work? And I'm sure some of you here know and understand how it works. But there's actually 2 stages to a SIM attack. The hacker first has to gain access to the telco's backend because the attackers started with faking IDs and pretending to be you, but that's very high risk. They need to be physically present in a cell phone store somewhere where they can activate the new SIM. And that physical presence gives them a lot of exposure. Hackers don't like exposure. They want to be in the darkness, in the shadows, and operate from there. So the second step was they realized, well, there are a lot of not well-paid telco employees that can actually share their access, and created these dark web marketplaces for these people to go and, if you're making minimum wage in US and someone says, you know what, if you leaked your credentials because you have admin access to AT&T's console, I'll give you $10,000. At one time, that was less than 1 Bitcoin. So, of course, these hackers, once they're successful, have the means to make these offers. Then they gain direct access to the back end of the service provider. So they don't go in and try to guess your PIN or brute force your PIN or password or anything like that. They get access to the administrator who can swap the SIMs. And you're going to say, Brad, these are, lofty allegations. How do you know about this? Because I have been the victim of a SIM swap attack several times and had to go the route of litigation with the telco companies. And they revealed, as a result of these lawsuits, that that's how they gained access. It wasn't through fake IDs or brute force hacking passwords or PINs. So the stage one is the hackers gain access to the telco's admin board. Once they have that, they can move any phone number, any SIM in any direction they want. Now, the challenge is once they start doing that, that's going to trigger a red flag on the telecommunications company's security side, as well as it's going to create red flags on the user side because they're going to lose their phone connections. So it is a strategic approach to identify certain targets, high-value targets, and then bundle in a bunch of other people because you're going to see later on in the presentation, hacking is a numbers game. You don't, hack into a telecommunications company to take the funds from one wallet. You want to hack into a telecommunications company if you have 100 high-value targets and maybe you have another 500 that are involved with crypto and probably you can target. Stage two is once they port the number out, now they want to gain access to your email accounts, your apps, your banking, your crypto wallets. How does that work? Recovery. They use recovery options that you might have set up on your accounts to gain access initially to the main email that's attached to your phone. If you have an Android or an iPhone, you're going to realize that you have to have one email attached to that phone. I mean, if you don't have that email, you can't set it up. Well, that's a really good tracking tool for the government and the telco companies, but it's also a vulnerability point for hackers. Because if they know what email is your phone's main email and somehow can get access to that, then they have access to your phone. So what they do is once they SIM swap, they try to guess the email, or if you've already given them and you're public about your email on your phone, they use that email, and the initial thing they do is they try to recover the password of that email to the phone number you have, because now they have access to the phone number. So you see, once the first stage is complete, all this is scripted. This is not a manual process. They don't go in and manually try to figure out. They have scripts ready to go that can do this to thousands of phones in a matter of minutes. And if you're the weakest link and they crack your phone and have access, then they know what apps are on your phone. So the challenge is not that they would have access to your emails initially. The challenge is once that email is available to them, they can set up the phone exactly the way you had it and immediately see which apps you were using, and instead of trying to guess what crypto wallet you may have, they know exactly which one you have. This is a problem because guessing which app, which wallet, which banking you use is a lengthy process that works against hackers. If you already hand them over that information, then it speeds up the remainder of the hacking processes. So when does a SIM swap attack happen? Well, it doesn't happen randomly whenever they get a hold of your phone number or they have access to the telco's admin panel. It happens in a very timely fashion. A lot of us travel a lot. We sometimes share, or our friends share, our travel schedules. So the smart hackers actually wait till you're traveling or you're sleeping to start the process. Because most attacks of this nature can be detected if you're awake and you have your phone in your hand expecting a message or something to clear within minutes. They need hours to go through the whole process and access as many funds as they can, and as many different wallets and apps and financial products you use. So they time it to either correspond to when you go to sleep, so you won't realize that your number has ported, or they try to figure out your travel schedule. And if you say, oh, I'm tomorrow going to be in Europe, and you're US based, they know the night is a safe time to attempt this. If you say, you know, I'm going to be in Asia and you're European, same thing. They figure out when would be the best time to attack, so they have the most time to work on all your accounts. I talked a little bit about this. The sure way signs of being SIM swapped is you lose cell coverage, and if it's a SIM swap where they port your phone number from one SIM card to another, and your data connection, if you have Wi-Fi, is active. So it's kind of tricky. What I do, and it's a really simple test, is I send myself a text message. So if I see there's something funny with my phone, I just send myself a text message. If it goes through, probably bad coverage. If it doesn't, call your telco. Now, there are other ways to port your number out. You can clone a SIM, which is slightly more sophisticated and requires a little bit more hardware knowledge as well as access, because cloning a SIM requires a device that can read and write SIM cards, which you can get easily, but you have to figure out how it works and learn a little bit more than just social hack the telco company. This is even more dangerous because it doesn't cut off your phone. You still receive your calls, you still get your text messages, your data is working, and suddenly you start seeing messages that you didn't write. Like people asking your friends for a Bitcoin because you lost your wallet, and you're looking at your phone, interesting, that's not me. But slightly more sophisticated. Again, the best way to recognize that it's happening is monitor activity on the channels that you use the most, because those are the ones that they're gonna target. Well, now that we know what and how a SIM swap attack works, how do we avoid getting SIM swapped? Unfortunately, unless you're the CEO of the telco company and you control all the levers, you're not going to be able to avoid it. I mean, there are services that are much more secure than a traditional telco company like Google Fi. So not all providers are created equal, but if someone has back-end access to the admin panel of any provider, they're going to do some damage. So the best way to avoid is not avoidance, but preparedness. If you're prepared for a SIM attack, which I'm grateful I was, you don't have to suffer any losses. It's just some inconvenience and some time spent on the phone with the telco company getting your number back, but you don't lose anything. So let's talk about best practices. There's some common sense stuff here. Always assume that all your identity documents are floating around in the dark web. I know it sounds terrible, but it's a safe assumption that everyone in this room has some form of ID that has been digitized, put on the dark web, has a certain dollar figure on it, and it's for sale. So if someone wants to target one of us, they can go find it and use it to create a fake identity or pretend they're us. Another assumption that would save you a lot of time is all your unsecured communications that's unencrypted or provided to you by a large conglomerate that has to play nice with governments is can and will be intercepted. It's not safe. So don't assume, just because you have WhatsApp that you put the stuff you put on your WhatsApp, maybe you're sharing your bank details, maybe you're sharing your passwords, are safe. They're not. Facebook has a responsibility to the US government to reveal those. The way they reveal creates weaknesses in their system because a hacker sufficiently sophisticated can exploit those openings and get that information. Always use 2FA, two-factor authentication. I put Google Authenticator, and I know some of you in the crowd is going to say, well, Brad, that's not safe. You should use some online solution. There are stronger two-factor authenticators. The most affordable way to do it is have an offline phone that's not connected to anything, so it doesn't have a SIM card, and use that as your authenticator. We're going to get to that later. Also, this is a really simple fix and doesn't require you to be a technical security genius to implement. Randomize your passwords and use unique logins. If you use the same login and same password on every app, wallet, everything you use, that's a big problem. There's a lot of programs that will randomize your passwords and save them for you, so you need to remember just one sophisticated master password to access them. I put LastPass there because I've been using it for years. Hasn't had any issues for me. Again, obviously, this relies on a third party to be as secure as you want to be, and if LastPass gets hacked, I'd have to immediately take action because my passwords are there and they're randomized, so I have no clue what they are. But it's just an example. You may want to use another program that you feel more comfortable with. This should be no-brainer. Don't keep a text file or text messages of your passwords on messaging apps or your Google Drive or your iCloud. Because if you do and you get hacked, they don't even have to figure out what your password is. You just handed it to them in a file, nicely, neatly organized with all the apps, the login, the password. So if you have something like this, delete it, destroy it, reformat that drive, close that Google account, make sure it's gone. It's very unsafe. This is just a repeat of what I said, attack vectors of SimSwap and how to protect against them. Obviously, the first attack vector is your email associated with your phone. Don't use an email on your phone that you use for other things. It's really simple. Make sure your email is unique and no one knows about it, and it's not your name, not your birthday, not your family, something completely random that just activates the phone for you. You do this, you're going to eliminate 95% of SimSwap attacks because they're not going to know how to go into your phone. And again, they can't copy your setup. They can't figure out what your apps are. A lot of headache. So the second one is don't have your public phone number, the one you use, the one you give to your friends, as the recovery number for that email. Not only randomize the email, but also don't have your phone number attached to it. Do you need a recovery number? Absolutely. Use a burner phone. Use a phone that's not associated with you, that you pay a couple $100 a year. And again, this is the only purpose of that phone. If you need to recover your main email on your main line, that's the purpose it serves, nothing else. Don't install any apps. If you have the technical knowledge, don't even have the telco apps on it, just root it and keep a simple Android or iOS stack on it. This is important. If hackers do not get a hold of your apps immediately, now you become a less interesting target. I'm gonna remind you, hacking is a numbers game. If you're the most difficult target, no matter how much they have to gain from hacking you, they're gonna go to other targets that may have a lesser value, potentially they have less crypto, they have less money, they use less online access, but they're easier targets. And if they can't see what you're using, again, next target. So the attack vector number 2 is, let's assume you put your phone number in your main email that activates your phone. Not a smartest move, but it happened. They have access to your email, they ported your phone number, now, or they reset or cracked it, doesn't matter. They have access to it. So now, what is the recovery option on your banking, on your crypto wallets? How do you recover those passwords? Don't put it on the same email and on the same phone number. I can't repeat this enough. If you use the same phone number and email for recovery, for all your important apps, all your less important apps, your mobile games, your YouTube channel, your Twitter, if you have this information out there, it's not that difficult for hackers to just crawl the web, crawl all social media, gather this information from public sources, and use it against you. So never use your main email address as a recovery option. Well, how can we literally sleep at night? Because, once you're SIM swapped, you start losing sleep over it. Especially people, friends of mine who lost a lot of crypto, who lost access to their social media accounts, who lost access to their wallets as a result. It's a really bad feeling. You don't want to be in this situation. This is my personal strategy. You can elaborate on it. There are much more sophisticated, elaborate ways to protect yourself. This is simple, and anyone in this room can do this. Purchase a second phone. Don't give it to anyone. Ideally, don't use your name. That's why I use the term burner, where you buy a phone without giving your personal information and charge it as you go, ideally with cash or crypto. And you don't have a credit card attached to it. You don't have a name. Don't associate that number with your identity. Don't use your main email for any banking crypto login. A safe practice, a little burdensome, but safe practices, use a different email, randomized email and passwords for each of your logins. And if you have a lot, you can aggregate them. You can use mail forwarding in case you need to reset something, but don't use the same information over and over again. Create a recovery email address for your high-value online accounts only. Again, this is an email you don't touch, you don't check it, you don't have it on your phone, you don't have it on your laptop, you just have it in your mind or in a safe, written on a paper, and you only use it if something goes wrong to recover. And of course, use randomly generated passwords. Hexadecimal is best. If you're more comfortable just with numbers, use 16 characters or more. Harder you make it to guess or brute force, better it is. Now, let's talk about worst case scenarios. How does it play out? So, attacker hacks into the telco company, ports your number, identifies themselves as you, puts the fingerprint, iris scan, whatever the phone has, recovers your main email password because you had your phone number attached to it. Now they have your email, restores all your apps. Now they know what apps you use, and if they come this far, they're going to probably find a couple weak apps that you didn't strengthen or 2FA on, and they start recovering password pins for the high-value accounts to that email because you use the same email for everything. Scans emails, chats. It usually takes minutes It doesn't take hours. There are scripts that scan all your communications that they can retrieve. Obviously, some apps don't allow portability of information from one device to the other, which is good, but some do. So they scan and grab whatever information they can, and they start moving out the funds. They start with crypto, but if they can move fiat and you have access on your mobile, believe me, they'll go for that too. And then when all that is done, they start begging your friends for more crypto because you lost your wallet, you're in hospital, something bad happened to you. I would say most of our friends won't fall for that at this stage because they've seen it once or twice, but it's still annoying because people start worrying about you, even if they don't take anything. Best case scenario, just like we discussed, attacker hacks into telco. We have no control over that. So they are going to get that access. There's always going to be disgruntled employees who want to sell their login information. And there's nothing we can do. We don't control that entity. But they port out the number to a new device. They don't know your main email address. Now they're trying to set up as you, but it's not working. Because if they put a new email, that's pretty much a new identity as far as the App Store or Google Store is concerned. So they try to guess your email, it doesn't work, plug in a random email pretending to be you, maybe create a Brad Yasar at Hotmail or something like that, and then they try to guess the apps that you're using. This is a huge problem for them. At best, they have a couple hours to go through all this information, and they may go after the obvious things like Coinbase and some of the more favorite, preferred wallets, but it's a guessing game. It doesn't yield good results. So when nothing comes out, they get frustrated. They realize they have 200, 300, dozens other numbers that they ported, and they can work on those, and they give up. So what did you lose? You lost access to your phone number for a couple minutes or a couple hours based on how long they had to work on the phone, and they gave up. You didn't lose anything that was financially important to you. And that's where we're trying to get here. That's the best case scenario. So in closing, be safe rather than sorry. Hacking is a numbers game. Don't be the weakest link. If you're the weakest link, you're going to suffer financially. And of course, if it keeps happening and other people get affected as a result, reputation-wise too. Whereas, if you're the most difficult target, you're going to be left alone. Just to share my story, I've been attacked 6 times with a SIM swap attack. 4 of them, they successfully swapped the number out. 2 of them, the telco company stopped it. Of those 4, guess how much crypto or fiat or money I lost? 0. I didn't lose anything because I didn't put all my eggs in one basket, and I didn't use the same login and password over and over again. And this happens to pretty much anyone worth their salt in this industry. They go after highly visible targets. They go after, I read a Medium post the other day about some engineer who didn't think he would get hacked because he wasn't visible, and he got hacked and lost hundreds of thousands of dollars in crypto, which broke my heart because that person is an engineer, and these are very simple things to implement. A little information about hacks. They're not manual. They don't steal your identity. They hack the telco company. They're streamlined and scripted. So it's an automated attack. By the time it starts and ends, it's usually less than an hour. Thinking I can manually catch this and do something about it is a little naive. It's like not wearing your seatbelt and assuming, oh, if I'm in an accident, I'll just stop myself from flying out of the window, or I'll protect my kid with my arm. It doesn't happen like that. It happens so fast that you have to be prepared for it. That's my presentation about SIM swap attacks. I hope you found it useful. Thank you.